So what if I told you that to make it as a professional athlete, you didn't have to be the best player on the field. You didn't have to go to a prestigious school and you didn't have to be a part of an academy. You probably think I'm lying. Well, I'm not. And how do I know this? Because I did it. And so in this video, I'm going to give you some very particular components that will help you build out a blueprint that can drastically improve your chances of becoming a professional athlete. And the last one you can do right now. So let's go. One of the main pieces of work that I do with athletes, especially young athletes, is helping them try and find their way in the professional game. And I want to give you, potentially a hopeful athlete, a little bit of insight into what it takes. And so why am I qualified to do that? Well, like I said, I've done it myself, but I also did it in a slightly different way. And if you want to know about my journey into professional cricket, then there's a range of different videos that I'm going to leave links in descriptions that will help you understand my story so that you can go check it out. I took myself from being born with a rare condition, being told I wouldn't play sport, to then signing a professional contract 20 years later. And because I didn't do it conventionally, I've realized that there are so many people out there that are leaving so much on the table, and I believe there are many more people that can actually get there. So why don't they? And what are some of the mistakes that they make? And what do you need to do in order to get there? So I want to share with you what I've seen on my journey, what I did, as well as professional athletes that I work with, and those that didn't make it, the mistakes that they've made along the way. Just to say before we get going that I don't know much about your story, your ability, and I'm going to assume that you have some form of level in your sport. Other than that, there are many things here that even if you're starting out, you can get going with them straight away. Welcome to the channel. I'm Lewis Hatchett, former professional athlete, now mindset and mental performance coach, here to help you build your mind as your greatest strength. If you're new to the channel, then be sure to hit the subscribe button. Also like the video if it does bring any value, and don't forget to click the bell so that you become one of the first people to get notified of when a new video is posted. Let's get back to the video. Okay, so first off, and component number one is skills. You can't not have skills. You're going to need some base level of ability in the sport that you're playing. So no amount of physicality, no amount of tactics, technique is going to get you there if you don't have the core fundamental skills to help you in your sport. So what you want to understand are what are the core basic fundamental skills that you're going to need. And I'd also mention that you want to be realistic to the sport that you're playing. If you are someone who is 5 foot and you're potentially going into basketball, there is much more of a chance that you're going to get selected if you're 6'10", and there are some sports where that just happens, so I can't deny that that is a thing. But those aside, you want to make sure that you're building out a foundation of what your basic skills are. You're going to want to build what is like a base level at the bottom of a pyramid. You want to create a solid foundation in which you can start to develop further skills. Eventually, you want to get to a place where you can develop your USP, your unique selling point, like they do in businesses. That one thing that makes you unique in your sport. That could be something like free kicks that people like Beckham and Ronaldo are well known for, or Federer's forehand, or even Steph Curry's three-point accuracy. The trouble is that many athletes end up getting to that point far too early. They think about doing the really difficult and advanced things before they've even built a foundation. So you want to look at what are the core foundations and fundamentals to your skill so that you can develop those straight away, become really good at the basics, and then start to move on to the slightly more advanced stuff. So just ask yourself this very simple question, which are, what are my core fundamentals that I need to have? If this is tennis, it might be having a consistent forehand technique. In football, it might be pass accuracy, or golf, it could be simply swing consistency. Make sure that you start simple and then build from there. And a large way to develop these skills is to bring in the next component, which is having a coach. And a coach could be there to work from anything from your technical game all the way to your psychological performance. And all pros work with a coach because the reality is that you can't do it alone. A coach allows you to train a much higher level. It gives you someone to go back to. Even if you aren't working with them every day, you at least have someone to go back to check in, make sure you can get tune-ups here and there so that you can go off and do the work that's needed and then come back and see where you're at. Having a coach allows you to train at a much higher level, and you don't have to work with them every day. Sometimes you can just go back to them every now and then, but you just need someone to check in with, get tune-ups, and make sure that you're going in the right direction. And one form of a coach that you can have that makes up a huge aspect and the next component in your blueprint to becoming a professional athlete is physical training. With the exception of a very few amount of sports, most sports require a high elite level of physical ability. You're going to need to understand what the requirements are and what is needed for you to perform at the very highest level in your sport. This includes your diet, your recovery, the physical training itself, and you want to try and be as specific as possible. A big mistake that I see many making, especially young athletes, is that they train for aesthetics rather than specifics. So they almost train like a bodybuilder, trying to build up muscles that will look good, rather than anything that is actually specific and relevant to the sport that they're playing. And yes, there may be some times where you want to do some generic base training to get your physicality up, but more often than not, you're going to need to be able to move in a certain way. And your physical training is the best place for you to be prepared and perform well when it comes to those specific movements that you've got to do. And there's so much information out there online. Many athletes are putting out how they're training on their social medias. You can even find things on YouTube channels. But also, if the team that you're trying to get into has a physical trainer, then feel free to ask them. See if you can get their contact details, because it's free to ask. The worst thing that can happen is someone says no, but the best thing that can happen is they maybe give you a few pointers and maybe even point you in the direction of a program. And there is an argument that in some sports, it comes down to some form of a genetic lottery, that you are built a certain way and you will excel in that sport. And while that does exist, I don't think it is for the majority, because it does come down to who holds on the longest and who is willing to work the hardest, which ends up being our next component, hard work. The greatest difference between those that make it to the top and those that don't, it is hard work which separates them. In order to make it, you're going to need to do more than others, and it's going to be difficult. You're going to need to do the work. And so I like to think of hard work being broken down into 5 pillars. The first pillar being commitment. The biggest determinant of making it is commitment, whether you just work hard for a little bit or whether you're able to stay committed for a long time. It's your ability to be able to stay consistent in your practice and your training. The very best have enthusiasm, passion, and almost a healthy obsession with the sport that they're playing. Pillar 2 is discipline. So those who want to make it, you have to be disciplined. You can't just go out there and do the work here and there. You have to be committed and disciplined in order to make it. You're likely going to have to do the work around other aspects of your life, whether that's work or school. It's going to require you to be disciplined, especially on the route to trying to make it as a pro. Because by the time you become a pro, you have a lot more time. And while you do need to be disciplined, you just have a lot more space in order to be able to do that work. But beginning with and trying to make it as a pro, you're going to have to be disciplined. Pillar 3 is persistence. I like to think of people that make it in professional sport as those who hold on the longest. You have to understand that it's a process. It's going to be filled with ups and downs. There's going to be times where things aren't going your way. You're not getting the results or the progress that you would have hoped to. And those who stay persistent, they are resilient and are able to overcome these speed bumps and hurdles that are put in front of them along the way. And then pillar number 4 is adaptability. A large part of doing your hard work is doing it in moments when it doesn't necessarily suit. Sometimes you aren't going to have the best training facilities. Other times you're not going to be in the most ideal conditions. So you have to find ways to be adaptable. And the thing is, at professional sport, it's not easy either. There are moments where it's not going to go your way. There were times when I played and I didn't get everything in my favor and I had to adapt my skills, my ability, my technique, whatever it was, in order to make it work. And so the very best learn to adapt. So see if you can train and put in your hard work in moments when it doesn't necessarily feel good or suit you and come easy. And finally, pillar number 5 of hard work is curiosity. The very elite are continuously learning. They're never settling and they're always trying new things. You have to become a student of your game or your craft. You're not looking to get the answers given to you. You are the one that's wanting to understand them. And being curious means that you're actively going out there and seeking those answers so that you better understand what it is that you have to do. And so with all of this hard work, the best way to get it done is by setting out routines. Athletes at the very top, they're great at setting goals. And if you're curious about how to set goals, then I've done a full deep dive video on that, which you can go head over and get stuck into when you're ready. What all of this doesn't involve is normal habits of the everyday person. You want to set up your life differently because you're looking to get different results. It requires you having an approach unlike anyone else that you know. And this leads us on to the last and arguably the most important component of all, which is mindset. Making the decision to become a professional athlete is a mindset choice. And you're going to have to do things completely differently to everyone else, because the old adage that is true is If it was easy, everyone would do it. And even if you aren't at the physical, technical, or tactical ability you'd like to have right now, and at that expert professional level, it doesn't mean that you can't have that expert and professional approach. And it will consist of you being slightly single-minded, which will mean that you'll have to make sacrifices along the way. You'll need to be able to deal with the fact that other people will want to tear you down. You're going to face people that are better than you and have failures along that journey. You'll have to pick yourself up again and again. You'll deal with other people's opinions, and you'll have to be organized in your approach. And all of these aren't guaranteed that you're going to find success and sign a contract at the end. But one thing is for sure, I have not met a professional that didn't do these things. So that's something to think about. And if you're an athlete that wants to develop your mindset, then you might want to consider downloading the Mindstrong Sport app today. Filled with meditations, mindset courses, and other exercises built from performance psychology and much more. It is the mental gym that will help you build your mind as your greatest strength as an athlete. So download the app via the description and get your exclusive offer in the description of this video. But there's also one more approach that will help you become a professional athlete, a mindset that you want to make sure that you do not fall into, and you're going to want to watch this video next.